David thought he had it all: love, trust, a solid career. But when Emily's betrayal with a cocky coworker unravels at a corporate gala, he doesn't lash out. He plans. With every lie they tell, David's quietly building a case to expose them. In a world of whispers and ambition, one man's silence becomes the loudest weapon. Will their secrets bury them, or will David's calculated moves rewrite their story? David Marquez sat at his desk in a Miami tech startup's compliance office, his fingers tapping a rhythm on the keyboard as he cross-referenced expense reports. The hum of the open-plan office buzzed around him. Phones ringing, keyboards clacking, and muffled laughter from the marketing team across the floor. David, 35, was the guy who kept the gears turning, catching errors before they became lawsuits. Nobody threw him a parade for it, but the company ran smoothly because of him. He liked it that way: quiet, effective, invisible. His phone vibrated on the desk. A notification from Emily, his wife, popped up. Running late, client dinner. Don't wait up. David's jaw tightened. Emily, 32, the marketing VP, was a supernova in any room. Charismatic, sharp, always closing deals. They'd been the couple everyone envied. Their 5-year marriage a blend of mutual ambition and late-night strategy sessions over Cuban coffee. But lately, her client dinners stretched past midnight, and her texts arrived with less warmth, more haste. David swiped the notification away and opened the company's expense portal. He wasn't spying, not yet, just doing his job. Emily's latest report caught his eye: $2,300 for a vendor summit in Key West last weekend. He frowned, clicking through the details. No vendor names, no agenda, just a hotel folio and a car service receipt. He cross-checked the dates against the company calendar. No summit was scheduled. His pulse quickened, but he kept his face neutral. He opened Instagram on his personal phone, scrolling to Ryan Carter's profile. Ryan, a 30-year-old sales lead in Emily's department, had posted a story from Key West, same weekend, same hotel. A selfie by the beach, caption: "Work hard, play harder." David's grip on the phone tightened. Ryan was the guy who strutted through meetings, tossing buzzwords like confetti, always lingering too close to Emily during happy hours. David had noticed the glances, the way Ryan's hand brushed her arm when he laughed. He dismissed it as harmless, until now. Instead of texting Emily, David opened the company's Slack archive. He had access to everything, part of his role in compliance. A quick search pulled up a thread between Emily and Ryan, marked private but not deleted. Messages from last week: "Meet me at the bar after the pitch," from Ryan, followed by Emily's reply: "Only if you're buying." A winking emoji capped it. David's stomach churned, but he didn't flinch. He screenshot the thread, saved it to an encrypted folder labeled audit_2025, and logged out. The office clock hit 6 p.m. Most of the team had already spilled out to a nearby rooftop bar for Friday drinks. David stayed behind, pulling up the company's travel logs. Ryan's Uber receipts from Key West matched Emily's, down to the minute. He exported the data, time-stamped it, and added it to the folder. This wasn't jealousy, it was evidence. David leaned back in his chair, the faint glow of his monitor reflecting in his glasses. He wasn't the guy to storm into a bar and make a scene. He was the guy who built cases. An hour later, his phone buzzed again. "Emily, heading to the bar with the team. Join us?" David stared at the message. He could picture her now, leaning against a high-top table, her laugh cutting through the noise, Ryan orbiting her like a satellite. He typed back, swamped with work: "Have fun." He hit send and opened another tab, company VPN logs. Emily had logged into her work laptop from a Key West IP address at 2:17 a.m. during the summit. Ryan's laptop showed activity from the same location, same time. David's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He didn't need to confront her. Not yet. The truth was starting to form a shape, and he'd let it grow. He emailed his contact in IT, requesting access to archive security footage from the last company offsite in Orlando. His reason was vague, but legitimate: routine compliance review. By 8 p.m., he had a link to the footage. He scrubbed through the video, pausing at 1:43 a.m. There they were, Emily and Ryan, stepping out of a conference room, her hair slightly mussed, his tie loose. They laughed, their shoulders brushing as they disappeared down the hall. He saved the clip, labeled it, and added it to the folder. The office was empty now, the Miami skyline glittering through the window. David stood, grabbed his jacket, and headed to the rooftop bar. He wasn't going to confront them. He was going to watch. He arrived just as the team spilled onto the patio, Emily's voice carrying over the crowd. She stood next to Ryan, her hand grazing his arm as she told the story. The team laughed, but Ryan's eyes lingered on her, bold and unapologetic. David ordered a whiskey at the bar, his back to the group. He caught snippets of their conversation, Ryan boasting about a new client, Emily chiming in with a perfectly timed quip. The team ate it up, oblivious to the undercurrent. David sipped his drink, his mind racing, but his face calm. He noticed Ryan's phone on the table, left unlocked while he grabbed another round. A notification flashed, a calendar invite for a team-building run with Emily tomorrow morning. David's lips pressed into a thin line. He paid his tab and left without a word. Back home, their Coconut Grove apartment felt too quiet. Emily's running shoes sat by the door, next to a half-empty coffee mug with her lipstick on the rim. David sat at the kitchen counter, opened his laptop, and pulled up the company's performance review portal. He searched for Ryan's team. One name stood out, Sarah, a junior sales rep who'd flagged favoritism in Ryan's assignments last quarter. Her review, signed by Emily, had tanked her rating despite stellar metrics. David emailed Sarah, asking for a discreet coffee meeting to discuss team dynamics. She replied within minutes, "Happy to talk. I've got receipts." The next morning, David met Sarah at a cafe in Coral Gables. She slid her phone across the table, showing texts from Ryan pressuring her to drop her complaint. "He said I'd regret it," she said, her voice low. Emily backed him up, "Told me to play nice or miss out on promotions." David nodded, his expression neutral, but his mind cataloging every detail. He thanked her, promised confidentiality, and added her statement to his folder. By noon, Emily texted, "Great run with the team. You should join next time." David didn't reply. He was already cross-referencing Sarah's texts with Ryan's performance logs. Another piece clicked into place. He leaned back, the weight of the evidence growing heavier, sharper. Emily and Ryan thought they were untouchable, playing their game in plain sight. But David wasn't playing. He was building a fortress, brick by brick, and they'd never see it coming. David Marquez clicked through a procurement database in his Miami office, the glow of his monitor cutting through the early morning quiet. It was 6:45 a.m., and the tech startup's headquarters hadn't yet stirred to life. His encrypted folder, now a digital vault of evidence against Emily and Ryan, grew heavier with each new file. Last night, he'd added Sarah's texts, proof of Ryan's coercion and Emily's complicity in tanking her review. Today, he hunted for more cracks in their facade. A notification pinged, an email from the company's travel desk. David had requested a full audit of team expenses, citing irregularities in his compliance role. The report landed in his inbox, detailing a $4,800 charge for a client retreat in the Bahamas, approved by Emily. The attached itinerary listed Ryan as the sole attendee, no clients named. David cross-checked Ryan's calendar. No meetings scheduled, just a vague out of office. He downloaded the report, time-stamped it, and moved on. His phone buzzed. Emily, grabbing coffee with the team before the big pitch. "Wish me luck." David's fingers paused over the keyboard. The big pitch was a multi-million-dollar deal with a fintech client, one Emily had been prepping for weeks. Ryan was her right-hand man on it, their synergy the talk of the office. David knew better. He opened the company's shared drive, searching for the pitch deck. The metadata showed Ryan had edited it at 3:12 a.m. from Emily's laptop. David's jaw clenched. He saved the file's access logs. At 8 a.m., he walked into a meeting with the CFO, Maria Alvarez, to discuss compliance updates. She respected David's precision, his ability to spot risks others missed. He slid a printed summary across the table, outlining potential conflicts in a marketing team's vendor contracts. Maria's eyes narrowed as she scanned the numbers. $15,000 in unverified payments to a vendor linked to Ryan's personal email. "This is serious," she said, tapping the page. "Dig deeper. I'll back you." David nodded, leaving the meeting with a green light to escalate. Back at his desk, he accessed the company's VPN logs again. Emily and Ryan had logged into the same private network from a Bahamas IP address during the retreat. He pulled security footage from the hotel's public areas, requested through a routine vendor audit. The video showed them clinking glasses at a poolside bar, no clients in sight. David clipped the footage, labeled it, and added it to his growing archive. By noon, the office buzzed with pre-pitch energy. Emily strode through the open-plan floor, rallying her team with sharp commands and a bright smile. Ryan trailed her, pitching ideas to the junior staff, his confidence bordering on arrogance. David watched from his corner office, unnoticed. He overheard Ryan boast to a sales rep, "This deal's mine. Emily's just the face." The rep laughed, but David's fingers were already typing, pulling Ryan's performance metrics. They showed inflated sales credits, approved by Emily, despite missing targets. David's phone buzzed again. A text from Sarah. "Check the share drive," folder labeled client notes. Ryan left it open. He navigated to the folder. Inside was a draft email from Ryan to Emily, unsent, detailing a plan to funnel vendor kickbacks through a shell account. The email was sloppy, full of typos, but damning. David forwarded it to his encrypted Proton mail, then deleted the trace from a server. His heart raced, but his hands stayed steady. That afternoon, he met with an HR contact, Javier, in a quiet conference room. David presented a redacted version of his findings: Sarah's texts, the Bahamas footage, and the vendor payment discrepancies. Javier's face tightened. "This could trigger an ethics review," he said. David nodded. "It should, but keep it quiet until I have more." Javier agreed, promising to loop in legal only when David gave the signal. At 4 p.m., the pitch meeting kicked off in the boardroom. Emily stood at the front, her slides polished, her voice commanding. Ryan sat to her right, chiming in with stats that sounded impressive, but didn't add up. David slipped into the back, unnoticed, his tablet open to the pitch deck's metadata. He sent a discreet email to Maria, flagging the inflated numbers Ryan had cited. She replied instantly, "Keep watching. I'm calling audit post-pitch." As the meeting wrapped, Emily and Ryan basked in applause. They exchanged a quick glance, a shared thrill of victory. David caught it, his expression unreadable. He left the room and headed to the IT department, where he requested access to Ryan's laptop backups. The tech, a friend from past audits, complied without question. The backups revealed deleted files, photos from the Bahamas, a spreadsheet of consulting fees tied to the vendor. David restored them, saved copies, and locked his screen. That evening, Emily came home late, her energy electric from the pitch. She dropped her bag on the counter, poured a glass of wine, and leaned against the kitchen island. "We nailed it today," she said, not meeting David's eyes. Ryan's numbers sealed the deal. David stirred his coffee, his voice calm. "Good for you." She didn't notice the edge in his tone, already texting someone, likely Ryan. David watched her thumbs move, his mind cataloging the moment. He spent the night cross-referencing the spreadsheet's vendor codes with public records. The consulting firm was a shell company, registered to an address tied to Ryan's cousin. David traced the payments through the company's banking portal, finding $20,000 funneled back to an account Emily had accessed. He saved the bank records, encrypted them, and backed them up on a cold storage drive. The net was tightening, but he wasn't ready to pull it. The next morning, David arrived at the office early. An email from Maria waited. "Legal's on board. Present your case tomorrow." He replied with a single word, "Ready." Then he opened Slack, spotting a new message from Ryan to Emily. "Dinner tonight? Celebrate the win." Her reply, "Meet me at 8. Usual spot." David screenshot it, his pulse steady. He wasn't just collecting evidence now. He was setting the stage. At 7 p.m., he drove past the usual spot, a dimly lit tapas bar in Coconut Grove. Through the window, he saw Emily and Ryan at a corner table, leaning close, laughing. He didn't stop, didn't linger. Instead, he parked 2 blocks away and emailed the legal team a preliminary report: vendor fraud, conflicts of interest, and misuse of company funds. He attached the Bahamas footage, Sarah's texts, and the shell company records. The email was timed to land during tomorrow's board meeting. David turned off his phone, drove home, and waited. David Marquez sat in his Miami office at 7 a.m., the city skyline barely visible through the dawn haze. His encrypted folder now bulged with evidence: vendor fraud, Bahamas footage, Sarah's texts, and a shell company linked to Emily and Ryan. Today was the board meeting, and his email to legal, sent last night, would land like a grenade. He opened his laptop, double-checking the files. Every receipt, timestamp, and login was airtight, ready to dismantle the empire Emily and Ryan thought they'd built. His phone buzzed. A text from Emily. Big day today. Board's reviewing the pitch. Dinner later? David didn't reply. He knew she was at the office already, prepping with Ryan, their confidence unshaken. He pulled up the company's internal audit system and flagged their latest expense submissions. $1, $200 for client gifts with no recipient names. He forwarded the report to Maria, the CFO, with a note. More irregularities. Review before the meeting. Her response was instant. On it. Stay sharp. At 9 a.m., David slipped into the boardroom's back row, unnoticed among the suits and tablets. Emily stood at the front, pitching the fintech deal, her slides seamless, her voice steady. Ryan sat nearby, nodding, tossing in stats that sounded convincing but didn't match the data David had audited. The board leaned forward, impressed. Maria, seated at the head, glanced at her phone, then at David. Her nod was subtle, a signal to hold steady. Mid-pitch, Maria raised a hand. Emily, clarify the vendor cost for this deal. Emily paused, her smile faltering for a split second. All standard rates, vetted through procurement, she said, recovering. Ryan jumped in. I handle the contracts myself. Solid margins. David tapped his tablet, sending Maria the flagged expense report. She scanned it, her expression tightening. We'll revisit this post-meeting, she said, her tone final. Emily's eyes flicked to Ryan, a silent question. The meeting ended with applause, but Maria lingered, whispering to the legal counsel, Javier. David caught her eye as he left, her glance confirming the plan was in motion. Back at his desk, he accessed the company's email server, pulling a thread between Emily and Ryan from last night. Ryan had written, if they dig into the vendor, we pivot to the backup plan. Emily's reply, already covered. They won't look twice. David saved the exchange, adding it to his dossier. At noon, Javier called David to a private meeting in HR's corner office. Your reports with legal, Javier said, sliding a folder across the table. They're launching an ethics review. You're cleared to present to the board tomorrow. David nodded, handing over a USB drive with his full archive, footage, texts, bank records, and login logs. This stays confidential until tomorrow, he said. Javier agreed, locking the drive in a safe. That afternoon, David monitored the company's Slack channels. Whispers were spreading. Something's up with marketing's budget. Heard legal's involved. Emily and Ryan, oblivious, were in the break room, laughing over coffee, planning a celebratory trip to Key West. David overheard Ryan say, once this deal closes, we're untouchable. Emily smirked, clinking her mug against his. David turned away, opening his laptop to finalize his presentation. By 5 p.m., he received a tip from Sarah. Check Ryan's shared calendar. He booked a meeting room for tonight. David accessed the calendar. The booking was vague, strategy session at 8 p.m. with Emily. He requested security footage for the meeting room, citing compliance oversight. The feed showed them entering, laptops open, but no strategy talk. Instead, Ryan pulled up a banking app, showing Emily a transfer confirmation. David recorded the footage, noting the account number visible on screen. That evening, David drove to the Tapas bar in Coconut Grove, parking across the street. Through the window, he saw Emily and Ryan, heads close, scrolling through a phone. He didn't approach. Instead, he emailed the board chair, attaching the meeting room footage and a summary of the bank transfer. The subject line, urgent ethics concern. He hit send, then drove home, the city's lights blurring past. At 9 p.m., Emily walked into their apartment, her face lit with triumph. The board's eating out of our hands, she said, pouring wine. Ryan's numbers were perfect. David stirred his coffee, his voice even. Good to hear. She didn't notice his calm, already texting Ryan about their next move. David watched her, his mind on the board meeting tomorrow. The trap was set, and they were walking right into it. The next morning, David arrived early, uploading his presentation to the boardroom's secure server. It was a timeline of Emily and Ryan's actions, fake vendor payments, Bahamas trips, coerced reviews, and now the bank transfer. Each slide was backed by evidence, cross-referenced and time-stamped. Maria met him outside the boardroom. This is explosive, she said. You sure you want to lead this? David nodded. It's my job. At 10 a.m., the board convened. Emily and Ryan sat near the front, unaware of the shift in the room's energy. Maria introduced David, her tone grave. Our compliance head has a critical update. David stood, projector ready, and began. Slide 1. The Bahamas hotel receipt. Slide 2. Ryan's deleted email about kickbacks. Slide 3. Sarah's texts. The board's faces hardened. Emily's smile vanished. Ryan's hand gripped his phone. Halfway through, Emily interrupted. This is out of context. I can explain. Maria cut her off. You'll have your chance. Let him finish. David continued, detailing the bank transfer, the shell company, and the meeting room footage. Gasps rippled through the room. Ryan stood, voice shaking. This is a setup. David met his eyes calm. The evidence speaks for itself. He clicked to the final slide, a recommendation for an immediate ethics investigation. The board chair called a recess. Emily and Ryan huddled, whispering frantically. David stepped out, his phone buzzing with a text from Javier. They're suspended, effective now. Legal's taking over. David exhaled, the weight of months of work settling. The gala was tonight, and he knew Emily and Ryan would make one last play. He was ready. David Marquez stood on the balcony of the Miami hotel hosting the company's annual gala, the city's lights pulsing below. His phone was silent, but the board's decision from this morning echoed in his mind. Emily and Ryan were suspended, their access to company systems revoked. His presentation, vendor fraud, coerced reviews, unauthorized bank transfers, had landed like a guillotine. Tonight, the gala would be their last stage, and David knew they'd try to salvage their reputations. He was ready. Inside, the ballroom buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses. David entered, blending into the crowd, his presence unnoticed by the executives swapping small talk. Emily stood near the stage, her posture rigid, whispering to Ryan. He gripped a drink, his knuckles white, scanning the room like a cornered animal. They hadn't seen the Slack announcement yet, a company-wide memo David had scheduled to drop at 8 p.m. Minutes away. It named him head of ethics and compliance and outlined the investigation into senior marketing staff for ethics violations. At 7:55 p.m., David leaned against a pillar, watching Emily charm a group of junior staff. Ryan joined her, his laugh forced, his eyes darting to his phone. The clock hit 8 o'clock. Phones buzzed across the room. A sales rep gasped, reading the memo aloud. David Marquez, appointed head of ethics, effective immediately. Investigation launched into misuse of funds and conflicts of interest. Heads turned. Whispers spread. Emily's hand froze mid-gesture. Ryan's phone slipped slightly in his grip. David stepped forward, his voice calm but carrying. Check your notifications. Emily's eyes locked onto his, confusion flickering. Ryan opened Slack, his thumb scrolling frantically. The room's energy shifted. Colleagues stepped back, creating an invisible barrier around the pair. Maria, the CFO, approached, her face stern. You two, a word. Now. She led them to a side room, the door closing with a soft click. David didn't follow. He didn't need to. He'd already emailed legal a new file, a calendar invite Ryan had sent Emily for a weekend strategy session at her lake house in Ocala, booked for tomorrow. The property, co-signed years ago, had a clause David had insisted on. Control transferred to him if Emily breached corporate ethics. The deed was already in his name, filed yesterday. He'd alerted the security firm to block their access. Back in the ballroom, the string quartet played on, oblivious to the drama. David's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. They're freaking out. Ryan's yelling in the side room. David didn't reply. He sipped his drink, watching the crowd's glances shift from curiosity to judgment. Minutes later, Emily and Ryan emerged, her face pale, his jaw tight. Maria trailed them, her phone in hand, already dialing legal. You're both on leave, she said, loud enough for nearby staff to hear. Don't contact anyone until HR reaches out. Emily tried to speak. This is a misunderstanding. Maria cut her off. Save it for the review. Ryan grabbed Emily's arm, pulling her toward the exit, but she shook him off, her eyes scanning for David. She found him near the bar, her stare a mix of defiance and panic. He raised his glass slightly, his expression unreadable, then turned away. By 9 p.m., David was back at his desk, accessing the company's asset records. Emily had failed to disclose the lake house as a joint asset, a violation during an ethics probe. He forwarded the updated deed to legal, copying the board chair. His phone buzzed again, an email from Emily, sent to her sister but mistakenly CC'd to him. Ryan's losing it. He thinks David set us up. David saved the email, time-stamped it, and added it to his archive. The next morning, David drove to the company's headquarters, arriving before the staff. Security footage from the gala, requested last night, was waiting in his inbox. It showed Ryan cornering a junior employee, pressuring her to vouch for his vendor contacts. David forwarded the clip to Javier in HR with a note, additional coercion evidence. Javier replied, interviews scheduled for Monday. They're done. At noon, David got a call from the Ocala security firm. Ryan and Emily had arrived at the lake house, expecting a weekend escape. The gate wouldn't open. Their key fobs were deactivated. Ryan argued with the guard, shouting about his property, until Emily pulled him back to the car. David listened to the report, his voice steady. Follow protocol. No access. He hung up, then emailed the board, flagging the attempted entry as another ethics breach. By afternoon, the office was a rumor mill. Staff whispered about Emily and Ryan's suspension, their desks already cleared by facilities. David met with Maria in her office. Legal's moving fast. David Marquez sat at his new desk in a Miami headquarters, the title head of ethics and compliance now official. The office hummed with Monday's routine, but an undercurrent of unease lingered. Emily and Ryan's absence left a void, their names whispered in break room huddles. David's inbox held a legal summons. Both were scheduled for interviews tomorrow, their careers hanging by a thread. His evidence, vendor fraud, coerced reviews, lake house violations, had sealed their fate. He closed his laptop, his work done for now. At 8 a.m., David met with Javier from HR in a secure conference room. Javier slid a report across the table. Emily and Ryan's termination letters, drafted and awaiting board approval. They tried calling board members over the weekend, Javier said. No one took their calls. David nodded, handing over a new file. Ryan's attempt to pressure a junior employee at the gala, caught on camera. Add this to their case, he said. Javier took the file, his expression grim. This ends it. By noon, David received a call from the Ocala security firm. Emily had returned to the lake house alone, demanding access. The guard reported her pacing the gate, phone in hand, arguing with someone, likely Ryan. David instructed them to document the attempt and deny entry. He then emailed the board, attaching the security report as evidence of Emily's continued disregard for protocol. The lake house, now legally his, was off limits, its deed transfer finalized last week. At 2 p.m., David walked through the office, noticing empty desks where Emily and Ryan once sat. Facilities had boxed their belongings, labeled for pickup. A junior staffer approached, hesitant. Is it true they're gone for good? She asked. David kept his tone neutral. Legal's handling it. She nodded, relieved, and returned to her work. The office was moving on, the scandal already fading into whispers. David's phone buzzed, an email from Emily, sent to him directly this time. We need to talk. This has gone too far. He didn't respond. Instead, he forwarded it to legal, noting it as an attempt to bypass HR protocol. He then accessed the company's banking portal, confirming the joint account he shared with Emily was frozen, triggered by a clause he'd added years ago to protect against ethics breaches. The bank had notified her this morning. She'd have seen the hold by now. At 4 p.m., Maria, the CFO, called David to her office. The board's signing off on terminations tomorrow, she said. Your work exposed a rot we didn't see. We're restructuring compliance under you. David accepted the responsibility, outlining plans to tighten vendor oversight and mandate transparency in team assignments. Maria approved, handing him a budget increase to hire 2 new auditors. Keep the house clean, she said. David agreed, already drafting the new policies. That evening, David drove to Coconut Grove, parking outside their apartment. Emily's car was gone. Inside, her keys sat on the counter beside a half-packed suitcase. A note in her handwriting read, I didn't mean for this. David set it aside, photographing it for the record before filing it with legal. He then checked his Proton mail, finding a leaked message from Ryan to a former colleague. David framed us. I'm lawyering up. The colleague had forwarded it to HR, unwilling to be dragged into the mess. The next morning, David sat in on Emily's HR interview via video call, observing silently as legal counsel presented his evidence. Emily's voice cracked as she tried to explain the Bahamas trip as team building. The council countered with the hotel footage, showing no team present. She went silent, her defense crumbling. Ryan's interview followed, his bravado gone, replaced by stammered denials. The council cited the shell company and bank transfer, leaving him speechless. Both were formally terminated by noon. At 1 p.m., David met with Sarah, the junior rep who'd helped expose Ryan's coercion. "You're safe now," he told her. "I've pushed for a review of your last evaluation." She thanked him, her relief palpable. David then emailed the board, proposing a workplace fairness fund, seeded with proceeds from selling the lake house. The board approved, and he listed the property that afternoon, directing half the sale to the fund. By evening, David stood on his balcony, the Miami skyline glowing under a clear sky. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You destroyed us." He recognized Ryan's tone, the desperation clear. David typed back, "Your choices did that. I just held the mirror." He sent it, blocked the number, and turned off his phone. The city hummed below, indifferent to the drama now closed. David poured a coffee, reviewing his next project, a company-wide ethics training program. He'd build a case, not for revenge, but for accountability. Emily and Ryan had gambled on charm and shortcuts, assuming David's silence meant weakness. They'd lost everything, careers, reputations, the lake house, while he'd gained control, not just of assets, but of the truth. He sipped his coffee, the weight of justice settling lightly on his shoulders. The chapter was over, and he was already writing the next.